Good evening, Damalie. How are you?
I'm doing good, Melissa. How have you been?
I've been doing good. How's everything? How's counseling going? How's everything?
Counseling is going. People are very going through processing their journeys with life. I didn't realize I have my red on, and for tomorrow we have Valentine's. So
Yes,
I'm
I
way,
love it.
yeah. So counseling is going. We wish that people didn't have to seek counsel, but unfortunately, we all need help. And so they reach out for help when they feel like they are stuck and frustrated and they don't know how to move forward. And so we are able to take in as many as we can. And how
Yeah.
is your going?
Mine is going pretty good. It's picking up, now with moving around with my social media a little bit more and just engaging more in in all kind of platforms is moving along. But I've been very busy, not only with counseling, but just overall, just been very, very busy. So
Oh,
being that tomorrow it's Valentine's Day, I figure that we can speak about relationships, and conflict resolutions and anything that has to do with marriage, or if you're dating or you're planning on getting married. I think that these are good conversations to engage in such a month as February.
yeah. I think one of the things that I see when it comes to relationships, I was listening to a radio show this morning, not this morning, this afternoon, and that from that little piece that I listened to, they were talking about this lady wrote in and said she had gained weight throughout their marriage. And the husband said, like, we need to get on a health program together so that we can find each other attractive all over again. The
Mm.
conversation was, do you agree with him or he should not touch that subject? So people were calling in, but the person that I heard was who was making a commentary saying, like, well, if he found her in that space. It's one thing to meet a person when they are small and then life happens and then they kind of gain some weight. But it's another thing to find them when they're already in that same size bracket and then expect them to do drastic changes into losing so much weight.
Uh,
But they made a comment that said how you meet a person is very crucial. The condition you meet a person is very crucial.
yeah,
Because the conflicts as couples grow together is that they start to grow apart, like for example in physical attraction.
yeah,
And some people don't know how to move past. If I'm not attracted to you, I don't know how to relate to you because I don't want to be around you. You're repulsive to me, to some people.
right.
So as we work with couples, at least in my experience when I've worked with couples, that's a reality. And people bring that conversation up like, hey, I don't find my spouse attractive as I used to. What do I do? And it's like now it's peeling, but the person doesn't tell it to their spouse. They're just over here not talking, not romancing, not having sex, and all that other stuff going on.
Right. Yeah.
But underneath there, they don't find their spouse attractive anymore, but they still don't know how to tell it to them. So it's
Right.
interesting, is that. So as we talk about this conflicts in couples or challenges couples experience, for you, what have you noticed?
I mean, that you bring up, it happens a lot. I was working with a couple actually that was one of the problems. The wife, she had went through, I believe it was cancer, that she had breast cancer, so they had to cut her breast.
That's right.
And she fell into depression, she gained a lot of weight, and and it was that same situation, that I don't find myself attracted. So even though the husband was encouraging her to move forward and maybe get her implants done, or just go to the gym, go out for walks, the problem wasn't just that the husband didn't want to support her, because he was, but it was her self-image. So not only is the husband encouraging, or the wife encouraging the husband to do something about their looks, but I think that it comes within yourself. Because sometimes we are more harsh on ourselves than we can be to our significant other.
Right. Right.
So that creates not only conflict between you and your spouse, but it also brings internal conflict because of the way you see yourself now, which is even worse.
I think that's the biggest battle. Before you have a relationship with another person, you have to have a relationship with you first.
Yeah, so hands down.
And that's a very difficult relationship because I have this exercise I give my clients about looking in the mirror and seeing, describing what they see. I've
Mhm.
had people who have avoided looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
And what are we looking in the mirror for? Because I don't like what I see in that reflection. We're not going there. So if you're afraid of looking at your reflection, meaning that you're afraid of your own self,
Yes.
how are you gonna feel comfortable with another person? It's very
Yeah,
difficult, you know?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, in a situation like that, I always suggest, but like you said at the beginning, right? Everyone comes to counseling when they're getting ready to either get a divorce or it's getting very close to it, or I mean, someone suggested, majority of people is because somebody said, I think you guys need help.
Yeah.
Even if they're not planning on getting married yet, but people can't see it from the outside,
Yes.
and I always use the same analogy that if you only took your car for service when your engine was dying, or you only took your car to the gas station when you have 1 mile left before it dies, you're not
Yeah.
gonna have a car,
Absolutely.
so some people take care of their cars better than they take care of their relationships.
Yeah.
And so it's very vital for us to say all our relationships need attention and they need maintenance,
Yeah.
right? So if you learn to have maintenance before you even get there, you will find yourself uh, speaking about those things. Hey, I think you're not taking care of yourself. I think that maybe both can help each other look better or eat healthier, or anything that you're dealing with, you can catch it right there and then.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
having maintenance in your relationships, it's the best thing that you can have. I mean, I've
Yeah.
been married for almost 8 years now, and I thank God for even having counseling for myself and from my spouse, because we at the beginning it was very hard. I mean, we're a blended family. He has children from prior relationships. I have my son before, from my previous relationship, and it was hard at the beginning. And one thing that I learned through counseling myself, right? Not me counseling myself, but obviously going for, through counseling, was that we never unpacked our bags when we were dating.
Mm,
And what do I mean by that? There's a lot of things that we did not speak about, and then we got married.
yeah.
So that means that in our marriage, we've been unpacking things or dealing with things that maybe it would have been a non-negotiable for me or for him, and not having those non-negotiables brought us to a place of, okay, I want to walk away from this now.
Mm,
Because that's what happens, especially if you had previous relationships. It's like you walk in there and you already know what you don't want.
mm.
So the moment that you encounter those things, it's like a red flag, and you're like, okay, I don't want this.
Yeah. Because I think when you're a person, when you're dating a person, the first instinct is like, will they accept me for me?
Mm-hmm.
You're not necessarily thinking about bringing all those heavy conversations in a relationship because you're afraid that they will not want you.
Yeah.
And so you get to secure the relationship by being married. Now that's when you feel, okay, now we can bring about these things that have been important, which is a mistake most people do.
Yes.
And I've encouraged so many people before they get married to be honest with themselves, but they convince sometimes themselves. I just actually read an article that a big percentage of people who get divorced, they knew when they were getting married that they were making a mistake, but they went through with that decision anyway.
Wow.
They really knew because, and even as many people I've talked to personally that have gone through divorce,
Mhm.
they knew before they got married that this is not gonna last.
Mhm.
But they did it anyway for various reasons. And
Yeah.
so if you want to have I mean, relationships are difficult, of course, when you start with your relationship with your own self before you bring in another person in your space.
Yeah.
By nature, difficult. They're supposed to help us to grow. They are supposed to challenge us to grow into different areas. But at the same time, when we are so afraid to show up as ourselves because we are afraid that we'll be rejected, we'll be abandoned, it doesn't do good for the relationship because it's like you feel like somebody lied to you.
Yeah.
The person you dated and the person you married to are like two different human beings.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so conflict is very inevitable, even if those things are not the case. But initially, it's like very difficult because you're feeling now comfortable to show up in the marriage as you, but now you're bringing up things that you have issues with that you never spoke about, and you expect your spouse to be okay with it because they are your spouse.
Yes.
They're supposed to support you through it all, you know.
And I've seen them more in finances, believe it or not, because they don't talk about their debt. You know, that's what premarital counseling is so important, because through premarital counseling, you go through those stages. You speak about your finances, you speak about, even your upbringing, or you speak about everything. Like if you have a blended family, how is your relationship with the other family? You know, how is the relationship with your kids? Do you have any child support? I mean, things that you have to talk about before you even jump into a relationship, because what if that's not something that you wanted? What if, this is something that maybe you don't want to deal with somebody else's children? There's a lot of people that are okay with having stepchildren, but there are people who cannot handle it. You have to speak about, so what if something happens to the mother or the father and now the children have to live with us? These are make it or break it kind of situations in a relationship. So those are conversations that need to be addressed, and before even getting married. And then once you're there, just learning that marriage needs maintenance.
Absolutely.
Joining groups. I mean, I love, my church, because we have a marriage group, and every month, once a month, we get together, we talk about what's happening. I mean, we reinforce one another, and we're with people that are like-minded, that I know that they want the same thing I want. They probably would care about my marriage as much as I care about my marriage, and they will speak life into my marriage. So it's not so much counseling, but it's a support that it's good to have.
Yes. And that support is very crucial because when you isolate yourself as a couple from other relationships, especially couple relationships, you suffer alone. There is safety in a multitude of counselors, that you may go through something for the first time and another couple may have gone through it like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and they can relate and they can help you to know that that's not a make or break. You can work through this.
Yeah.
And because you may be stuck, and sometimes when people come to counseling, they don't fully trust the counselor. They feel like the counselor may side with one person. So, and that trust to happen, it may take time. But many times, as you know, people reach out for help when it's at the end of, at the end of the rope. Like it's so much has already happened that could have been prevented, but the damage is already done.
Yes.
So by the time they come to us, we can barely do anything, and then they say counseling didn't work, not because counseling wouldn't work, it's because the timing. These people have been together maybe 10, 8, 10, 15 years, and they've been in counseling for not even a month, and you're already giving.
Okay. Or they join counseling just to say, we tried, because usually when they come, is always that one person that I only came just to prove to her or to him that this is not going to work.
Yeah.
Especially if we're dealing with a choleric temperament, and it's like, okay, I'm only coming to show you that it's your fault, that I don't have a problem, it's your problem. So there are so many things that fall into that place where, no, do we want this? How bad do we want to fix it? And if you catch it in early stages, it gets better.
Absolutely.
We all have problems. We're all gonna, I tell my counseling this: if you guys are not fighting, you don't love each other. because people that love each other fight. People that care about each other, they fight. I mean, you can see it within your family. You're constantly fighting with your siblings, your parents, and it's because there's so much love and so much feelings involved that this is why there's conflict. But then this is when you have to learn to have healthy conflict resolution skills. You know, and it's never too late to learn them, because these are skills that you can apply even with your children. Because you see a lot of parents right now having terrible conflicts with their children and they don't know how to fix it, because I'm the parent and I tell you what to do and you have to listen to me, sort of, you know, mentality. So
Yeah.
it gets hard. But what would you say it would be a good tool for conflict resolution within the marriage?
One of the things that I encourage you is that to learn not to focus so much on the facts of the situation,
Mm.
because couples fight for different reasons: the dishes, the laundry, the tidying up of the house, the kids, everything. Encourage them not to focus on those things and to focus
Yes.
on the relationship itself.
Mhm.
Because they actually did a scientific study when you consider for when you're going to use emotionally focused therapy, that
Mhm.
the attachment styles that couples do have, because usually they work many times opposite. You know, when one person feel attached or safe with you when they are close to you, so every time you withdraw from them, they feel like they have to react in a sense to secure that connection. So when
Mm.
I encourage couples not to focus on the facts of this matter and focus on the relationship itself, because when they don't feel safely connected to each other, that's where they disagree and they fight. But if
Right.
you had to go back and think about, what do I need from him, what do I need from her to
Mhm.
feel safely connected to them, and then it will help them to learn how to repair their relationship,
Yeah.
because there will always be something, you know.
Yeah.
People fight about the laundry again, the dishes, and all those things, the money, all those things will be, and they will not go anywhere.
Mm.
But the relationship is, they focus more on the relationship itself. Like, I respect you enough, I cannot lose you. If you're hurting, what can I do to get back to you? What can I do to connect back to you? Even within yourself. Like, even for me personally, when I'm interacting with people, I get to see when I'm upset. And I also ask myself, what do I need to go back into that friendship, that relationship, so that I
Yeah.
don't just remove myself, so that you both individuals kind of get to know what they need to get back into that relationship, as
Mhm.
opposed to, you did this to me. Because if you're just pointing fingers, you're just shooting at each other, but
Mhm.
they're not going to have any resolution. But if you kind of identify, in order for me to stay safe with you, I
Mhm.
need you to hug me. I need you to just lower your tone. I need you.
Mhm.
That's it. If I know what I need and I'm
Yeah.
vulnerable enough to articulate and communicate it to you
Mhm.
without pointing
Mhm.
at you, without pointing fingers at you, I'm giving myself permission to get back into the connection of the relationship, as
Yeah.
opposed to setting my mind of what you didn't do, which makes you defend yourself of why you did what you did. And then we
Yeah.
go cycles. So that's one of the things, the number one thing I encourage couples: start focusing on the facts of the situation and
Yeah.
focus on the relationship itself. Because you could go to the judge with evidence of what happened and what didn't happen.
Mhm.
One person is gonna be right, the other person may feel bad, but the relationship is suffering at the same time. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things, at least that stands out to me when I'm talking to couples. Like, guys, it's the relationship. It's not the dishes. It's not the law.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the relationship. You're both hurting because you don't feel connected, and the suffering that you're experiencing from that disconnect is what we are seeing right now.
Yeah.
So as a counselor, I'm creating a safe place for both of them to feel like they can communicate, that they can interact with one another, to be able to trust each other again, to get back into that relationship. Because at this point, they feel like they are each other's enemies and they don't want it.
Yes. And you said something very important. You know, the communication is very important. But if you have communication with your spouse, but there's no understanding, you don't have anything. Because we can communicate and you can talk to me and I can talk to you, but if we're not understanding each other, it's never going to work. So, you know, and it's like, okay, we're fighting each other when we are supposed to be fighting the problem.
Exactly.
Right? So it's like, you're not my enemy. We have to fight the enemy. What is the enemy? So acknowledging what the problem is and
Yeah.
accepting that there is a problem, now you can identify who the enemy is, right?
Yeah.
In other words,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna fight with my husband. I'm gonna fight for my husband because we have a common denominator here that's attacking the both of us,
yeah.
right? And that's, I mean, I choose to see it that way because my enemy is not my husband.
But
My
when you're
enemy is the problem.
like, yeah, and and that's, I think, when we train people to develop the skills, because when you're in the heat of it, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like your husband is your enemy and you don't know
Yes.
differently.
Yes, but this is what this is when you start to learn emotional intelligence. When you have emotional intelligence, now you know that the person is not the problem, or I'm not the problem. There is a problem being created because we're not respecting boundaries, or we're not accepting that we are, because there's pride in between, and acknowledging, okay, you know what? I have to apologize, right? Like understanding that I messed up. So because I messed up and I'm human and I'm allowed to make mistakes, but I also have to realize that I have to accept what I did. And this teaches you so much growth in saying, I'm sorry. I remember the beginning of the relationship, my apology was, I'm sorry that you're hurt. I'm sorry that what I said bothered you. I mean, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I never wanted to be responsible for the things that I did. So I'm thinking I'm apologizing, but it wasn't sincere because I'm apologizing for how you're feeling. Not saying I'm sorry that I did that. I'm sorry that I said what I said, or I'm sorry because of the tone that I use. So when you bring yourself to a humble place and realize that I'm hurting the person that loves me, I'm hurting the person that I'm supposed to be building with. Now we're tearing things down because of my pride, because of my unforgiveness, because my lack of reasoning, right? And this
Yeah.
is where when you start, how the wise mind, right? In DBT, right? You think about the wise mind. It's like, all right, am I gonna listen to my emotions? Am I gonna be logical? Am I gonna be wise? So this is where you have to speak to yourself.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I always tell my couples is that if you have a sanguine, right? Explosive, you're gonna explode, you're gonna say bad things, things that you're gonna regret later. Give yourself some time. Talk to yourself. Analyze what's happening, right? Most of the times I say, I think that maybe you guys should pray to just clear the air and bring a little bit of peace into the situation and say, let's not talk about it now because we're gonna react with our emotions. So let's get our emotions under control. Now we attack the problem, not each other.
First
We
of all,
attack the
sometimes
problem.
people don't see the problem as the same.
Yeah.
Like even when they come into me at the first appointment, I mean, one person may think that we don't communicate, and the other one is like, "What are you talking about?" I feel like our communication is good, and so even do we see the problem the same way? Because the way we see the problem may not be the same.
Yes.
I may look at the problem as you are the problem, as opposed to we need to fix it, or I'm the problem. You may look at it, I'm the problem. I may look at it like you're the problem, but the problem is the problem on its own. So even our interpretation of the problem can be a problem in itself.
Exactly.
The way we see the problem, because we don't see it eye to eye, and
Mhm.
so even seeing that's why I encourage couples, it's not the problem, it's not the issues around the relationship, it's the relationship itself.
Mhm.
If they get back to that understanding that, hey, I respect you. And I think even as you're pairing up with a person and being in relations with them, it's fair that you're honest with yourself, because these are the issues that really show up because you are not honest with yourself. You are just trying to get in a relationship and get married,
Mhm.
and you are not honest. In other words, you didn't fully show up as yourself, and now you're married,
Right.
and the marriage
Mhm.
requires you to show up as you, but then you feel like uncomfortable because that's very foreign to you. So when you find a person who values and respects you because you really showed up when they met you, they didn't meet a representation of you because you're afraid that if you show up as you, you'll be rejected.
Right.
So you are honest with who you are when you met this person, and this person values and respects you. When it comes to resolving conflict, that respect really pays a lot because you feel like you cannot say certain things to your person that you love and respect. You
Yeah.
cannot go below the belt. No matter how upset you are, you have a limit because of that level of respect that you have with that person.
Right.
And so if you put yourself in a position, you know that this person never respected you even when you were dating, but now you're surprised that they don't respect you when you're married.
Mm-hmm.
Those are very difficult relationships to repair because there is no respect, there is no regard in a way. It's just self-centered to the most part. So
And many people don't even believe that when you're in a relationship and you can see it from afar if you're dealing with an abusive person, because emotional abuse, verbal abuse is sometimes even worse than physical abuse. You
yeah,
know, the root of the abuse is always starts as verbal and emotional. You know, because it's like, okay, you hit me, the bruise is gonna go away, but the scars in my heart, they're not healed. They're not, this is something, or my mind, you know. So I tell my couples all the time, if you know that there's an abusive relation, there's an abuse going on into the relationship, these are serious things, you know, especially to women when they are codependent to their husbands. And oh no, but you know, he has never hit me, but yeah, he curses at me, or he abuses me emotionally. You know what's coming next, because it's always elevating. It's always going from emotionally abused, mentally abused, and now it comes to physical abuse. So
yeah.
that's a very dangerous zone in you know, in a situation that you're not handling. You know, another thing that I would say that it's one of the things that I think it hinders most marriage is control. Who has the control,
Somebody,
right? This is a big problem, especially now that how we're living now, where women are very independent and they both work. You sometimes you might even make the same amount of money, if not the woman is making more. So there is a fight for control.
because we feel safe when we're in control. Everybody
Yes.
feels safe when they're in control. So whatever control looks like for everybody, that's what they're gonna pretty much do
Mhm.
until you're vulnerable to trust your spouse.
Yes. Yes. But
Yeah.
you can't trust your spouse if you never build boundaries. You know, I mean, you mentioned this at the beginning, you know, when you build boundaries, when you build non-negotiables, my couples never even know what a non-negotiable is. A lot of people won't even have those in their relationship. That was one of the first things that I had to set in place with my husband. I said, you know, I love my family. My family means everything to me. I do a lot of things for my parents. I mean, I see my parents every day. So this is something that is important to me, and I'm not willing to negotiate this. So if it's important to me, I need this to be important to you. Even if he doesn't have that kind of relationship with his family, but it's important to me. So I need you to respect that. Right? We have three non-negotiables, like my husband and I. And it's important because now you understand that you're gonna make me happy by understanding. Or even, you know, my son that is from my previous marriage is very important to me, for him to understand that, because you're not the father of my son and he's already an older, you know, he's 20 years old. It's harder for us to be able to, for them to see us a father and a son sort of way, because he's so much older. And I have such a great relationship with my son that there are going to be times that I want to go away with him, or I want to go out to dinner with him, just him and I alone. So those are things that he knows that are important to me.
Yeah,
You know, he respects those things.
yeah, that's
But if
good.
you never speak about those things, it's
It
going to
become,
be a problem.
yeah, you become resentful.
Yes. But if you, it's, I cannot stress it enough. It's important for you, and it's never too late. Even if you're already married and you've never placed boundaries, or you've never made limits and rules in your marriage, I think that it's a good time to start doing it, just to build better relationships.
And because it gives you permission to have a stronger sense of your own self. You know, when you
Yes.
don't have boundaries, you don't have a sense of self. It's like anything can go, anything can come. It's
Yes. Absolutely.
not fair for any other person to be in relations with you because it's like it's not fair for them.
Yes.
If they don't know where to draw the line, the lines are so blurred or there are no lines at all. So they can come today and then tomorrow they don't, and it's all over the place, you know?
And then it's hard to understand it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
They can find us on our website. They can schedule to repair their relationships. They can find me on forerunnercounseling.com. They can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. And they can get more information if you're in that space where your relationship needs some maintenance, like you said, or they need to repair, or they need to get unstuck. We are here to support you in whatever stage of your relationship you may be in. So that's how they can find me. So Melissa, you can say for you.
Okay. They can definitely find me on Instagram and New Creations NJ. And on my YouTube channel, I'm gonna put it down on the screen so everybody can follow me and like the videos and just even click the little bell. So every time we have a new video, you'll get the updates and you're gonna be able to enjoy our conversations. I love our conversations.
Yes, yes. I hope you guys love our conversations too, and join us with the comments and likes and what you would like to hear from us more, so that we can meet your needs in any way that you can. So
Yes, absolutely.
yes, so we'll see you next time.